All right, how's it going out there, folks? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you're at here on this fine Friday. Made it to the weekend here. March 28th, 2025 is the date, 10:26 a.m. That's California time here. Latest activity on the earthquake 3D globe shows a little 1.1 earthquake across California, but man, we got some big earthquake activity to talk about here with the biggest one here so far this year for 2025 goes to a 7.7 earthquake that struck here around the Myanmar area last night. I just was getting into bed, seen this earthquake come in here, so I went ahead and did just a real quick short for the channel. And I've been kind of busy this morning here with school and whatnot. Finally got a chance to jump on here and chat about this. Pretty shallow earthquake as well. That earthquake was very close to a super duper populated area here around the Mandalay area. Literally within just a few miles for this very strong 7.7 and super shallow earthquake. A number of aftershocks have struck here as well. This region down across this area, it's been a little while since we've seen any large earthquake activity down there. Let me show you guys the historical data. Here's today's quake there in the orange. Really close nearby, a 7.9 earthquake struck, which is obviously a little bit more powerful than the 7.7 struck here in 1912, just to the southeast here. Aside from that, looks like it was probably due here in this region far as a time frame since the last big earthquake activity, and just looks like it was coming up here. And off the plate boundary, obviously a little bit. If you remember here earlier this year, 7-pointer struck up here outside of the Himalayas as well, near Mount Everest. That was a pretty big one. So this area, quite dynamic in terms of the plate movement and the warping and whatnot of the land. Let's take a look here at the 7-pointer. That was definitely a big one. Goodness. The moment tensor here, the beach ball model there, looks like it's on a right lateral strike slip zone. If that matches up here to this image, let's see what the folks at the USGS are talking about here. So today's, or last night's, well, technically it would be today's, right? I was still in the 27th there in California time. So today's M7.7 earthquake near the Myanmar area occurred as a result of strike slip faulting between the India and Eurasia plates. There we go. See, so focal mechanisms, that's the beach ball, indicate that slip occurred on either a north striking steeply dipping or right lateral fault. Or a steeply dipping right lateral fault or a west striking steeply dipping left lateral fault. Say that 20 times there. The Finette fault solution indicates a north striking right lateral fault. Anyway, a whole bunch of information there. A big earthquake occurred. While commonly plotted as points on map, earthquakes of this size are more appropriately described as slip over a larger fault area. Wow, look at that, about 200 kilometers by 20 kilometers. That's definitely a lengthy slip there. The region has experienced similar large strike slip faults, earthquakes with six other magnitude 7 and larger earthquakes occurring within about 150 miles of the area since 1900. 7.7 earthquake back in 1988. So these guys put out little aftershock forecasts. I really don't pay all that much attention to it because this is something new. It's an aftershock forecast of this nature is just, I don't know. I think they're just putting it up here just for show. But these guys are stating that it could be at least a 6% chance of seeing another M7 or higher. 6-pointer, 40%, and obviously the numbers here as they go down on the magnitudes increase. And so far, we've had one aftershock of a 6.0, 6.4 to be exact, roughly in the same area. But that is a lengthy rupture out here. Notice that little migration there to the south. If we could see anything larger, I don't think we're going to see anything bigger here because the multitude or the magnitudes of quake, the quake magnitude here are just 7.9 up here, over 100 years ago in the north, but they average here around this magnitude between 7.7, 7.8. So I don't think we're going to see anything larger, which is good. But the aftershock potential out here is still quite high, with only one 6.4 being recorded. 24 hours, probably about 24 hours from the time the main quake struck is an area to watch, a time frame to watch here. So we got technically the next 12 hours, 13 hours or so to watch for some maybe, some similar magnitudes or smaller in terms of the aftershock potential out here. Seen quite a few videos out there floating around on social media of building collapses and whatnot. And this earthquake was felt, all over the place. That was definitely a big one. Let's see if the USGS is going to show any of those. I know it was felt down in Thailand area, Bangkok area, feeling this earthquake. In fact, I believe one of those videos floating around there shows some water on a skyscraper there sloshing over the sides there. I know people got these massive pools on top of these luxury buildings, and that earthquake, the earthquake waves there, literally splashed the waves down onto the streets below. It's pretty crazy looking. I'm not going to show the video there, but you guys can check it out. Either way, this was felt all over. Nearby, it's just the damage is, I'm sure, quite high in that area. Everything up in the red as expected in terms of estimated economic losses, fatalities as well. It's a big earthquake in a highly populated area. I think there's about 1.2 million people around that area, if I remember right. And that definitely is a big one. There's the fault rupture right there. Shaking felt obviously up into China. And that's a pretty big one there, folks. Like I say, I'm thinking we'll see maybe at least another 6 or so here in the next 12 hours. With that size magnitude earthquake there, we should see a number of 6s in terms of aftershock sequences there. So we'll keep an eye on that. Number of 4s as well, stirring up. Bunch of 4s. I'm sure the earth was ringing like a bell last night. I didn't get a chance to see it. I'm sure we could see it on many of the seismograph stations. Let's see real quick. I want to see what it looked like. 7.7. There we go. That is what, this is almost on the opposite. It is on the opposite side of the globe here from Yellowstone. That seismic wave right here. Beautiful signal from that 7-pointer. It may have even picked up that 6-pointer, and then the surface waves there and the wavy lines. That was not felt in Yellowstone National Park there, Wyoming, but the seismic wave was picked up on the seismograph stations. A long ways away. Very long ways away. So there's the 7.7 in Yellowstone, of course, right over here. Of course, the opposite side of the globe here. If you were to figure that, probably puts it at down here across the Chile area. So 4.5, fairly recent aftershock activity. Let me check the EMSC model, see what these guys are reporting, because I'm sure there's a bunch of 3s striking in there in this area. A bunch of 2s and maybe even more 4s than what the USGS is showing. There's the most recent one, 4-pointer, 4.5. Main quake up here, 7.7, 6.4. Yeah, these guys are showing roughly about the same as what the USGS is showing up here. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Either way, that's the largest earthquake so far this year. Not an 8-pointer. Could be, though, soon. Just never know. As far as any migrational pressure pattern out here, that's interesting. This earthquake activity struck following this event yesterday at 6.1 out there, just a few hours later. So this is a divergent boundary zone, pretty much separation of the plates. It looks like that pressurization separation here moved well east, applied just enough pressure over here across this region to excuse me, trigger that big quake. Because obviously that's been building for a little while in terms of the strain that's built out here. And looks like there was just enough crunch moving around here of the plates to apply pressure here and produce that big earthquake. Yeah, it doesn't get much worse than that when it comes to red. The pager system out here. Big time. Oh, jeez, man. Just got another earthquake here. Hold on. So that looks like that was my earthquake app here that went off, and I have it set to go off for 6.5 and above. So let me see what's going on here. Okay, yeah, 6.6 out in the central mid-Atlantic ridge. We were just talking about that, and that's a divergent zone out here. Separation of the seafloor slowly, obviously, over time. The mid-Atlantic ridge yesterday had a 6-pointer. Now we got a 6.6. Now, that's interesting here because hours after yesterday's quake, we got that big one. Now we got one again in this area. It's going to be rather interesting here to see what happens here, but it looks like we got things set into motion with a potential larger scale activity taking place here somewhere. Yeah, look at that, 6.6 just coming in there to the central mid-Atlantic ridge. It shows timestamp here of 10:17, so they're a little bit behind on that. So we missed the, looks like we missed the waves out there. Maybe that might be it right there. Some of the S waves down across Chile. It's just been a short time ago, about 15 minutes ago. Either way, folks, things are definitely on the uptick. And this activity here, well, aside from the 6.6, yesterday's activity and the 7.7 here happened before that large solar flare that popped off here just an hour ago. We had a large X flare. I'll cover that here in just a minute. But this activity did not stir up as a result of the X flare. It'd be different if we had the X flare and all of a sudden things start popping up. But the bigger activity occurred prior to any X flare activity. So we'll watch this area here. It's interesting, not seeing any signs of stress out away from this area. You got to remember when you have an earthquake, obviously that's a release of built up strain in that area, but also at the same time that can have an adverse effect on areas nearby or even distantly. And with this setup here, it's possible we could have added some further strain out here across the Japan area, that Nankai Trough zone. So we'll watch that region here today as well. A couple earthquakes. Let's see, when was this? This was 1150. Okay, so at least one earthquake back over here across this side, following yesterday's or last night's big event here, 4.9. Super deep earthquake there into the Kuril Islands. Goodness, that Kuril-Kamchatka Trench right here. That's a major subduction zone. That's and I keep chatting about it, but I think we're going to see a mega quake on that zone. I wish they would add back the lettering here to their maps. Right now they just have it on the terrain. Maybe the grayscale model as well, but for the ocean, there's nothing. As far as the names of the areas and whatnot, that would be beneficial. Maybe they're still working on it. Maybe no one cares. I don't know. Maybe I'll email them and ask them if they could add it back on. It's beneficial. Also, we're missing the names of the trenches, like the Kuril-Kamchatka, the Nankai Trough, the Izu Trench, the Mariana Trench. All that's missing from the map models here, and it used to show it. It's not that big of a deal to go in there and add it. All right, so a bunch of big earthquake activity happening. That makes that makes 3 6-pointers. That's not good. 666 here, and then also the 7.7 earthquake. That's 4 large earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. Watch for larger aftershock activity there. Let's check California real quick, see if anything's popping up over there. Not really. Not a whole lot going on there. Let's see, 2.5 map and above is pretty quiet. Some movement up into Nevada. Ridgemark area, that's on the San Andreas Fault, the creeping segment. A couple smaller quakes there. But really nothing big going on. Southern California, pretty quiet. For now, eventually that's not going to be the case. The rest of the states here pretty quiet, aside from some movement out in Oklahoma and Texas oil fields. Let's take a look here at, it's spinning pretty fast. Take a look here at the region. The 4-pointer just coming in right now as well. Super deep earthquake. Way deep into the Kermadec Trench here for a 4.4. 600 kilometers deep. Woo! Really? I wonder if that's an error, because that is a super deep one. My gosh, that's we'll have to check back on that. But either way, the ball is set in motion out here, folks. Watch some certain regions out here. We got some large scale uptick taking place. Santorini area of Greece, that 4.5 from yesterday. I don't think we've had anything different here today. Let's take a look, though. Really not seeing anything. 1s and 3s. Well, at least one 3-pointer. A bunch of 1s in there as well. Really no major uptick. Looking at, let's zoom in here. About 250 earthquakes here in the last week. The number's been staying pretty consistent here each day because the number of earthquakes per day is roughly staying about the same as well. This will increase or decrease depending on how many earthquakes we get each day, but it's just staying pretty consistent there in the last week. There's that 4.5 there from yesterday. No unusual activity yet, just still seeing earthquake movement. Yeah, look at this. I got to show you guys. Where's that model at? That was a huge X flare. And this is coming from that region that I said to watch way out there on the eastern limb, right? You guys remember that from last night? Well, that area just blasted off a huge X flare about an hour and a half or so ago. Massive, huge CME. Had that been Earth directed, we'd be talking about some spectacular auroras here in a couple nights. But that, unfortunately, was directed ways away from Earth. But it is an active area, and I think it will remain active. And I say that because it's grown here in the last couple days. It's not like it's grown out there on the far side and then now it's just starting to dwindle down. It looks like it's in its stage of amplification. So I'll show you guys here on the magnetogram image. It's going to be this area back here. It doesn't look all that fancy here, but there is a little bit of complexity and obviously enough to produce that strong X flare. So watch that area. See if it's got a name yet. It doesn't look like it's named. But I'm sure it will be named here pretty soon. X-flare eastern limb. I mean, it's visible. It's obviously on the visible side of the Earth here, Earth-facing side. So I'm sure that will get a name and number here soon. Still calming down. Well, it looks like it's calming down a little bit from that X-flare, but might see some further activity. And we'll definitely watch that here in the days ahead. I'm going to amp mine up here a little bit. These guys are still showing 1% and M-flare at 25%, but that's probably going to change here now that we got that sunspot within within the Earth view here. Not really necessarily, Earth directed should anything blast off from it. It's still way out there on the eastern limb, but that's a big one. X 1.1 had a huge radio blackout on the sunlit side of the Earth. Mostly affecting navigation systems and communication systems. But there it is. It's been a little while since we've had an X flare. X 1.1. So maybe we'll start getting active here after, literally after a few weeks of pretty much like solar minimum conditions here. All right, quick check here at Hawaii and the Kilauea volcano. I believe we're in the pause stage right now. Go over here and check out the webcams real quick, which are pretty quiet right now. Still seeing some volcanic gases. This was from a couple days ago. It's interesting here that it's frozen on that image that was shooting up a whole bunch of brown stuff out there. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it's a little odd compared to the last 14 eruptions here that we've seen. Deformation data going back up as expected. There's the eruption depletion of magma. That's obviously during the eruption. Here's a pause as of yesterday. Now we're going back up. So on cue, rinse and repeat is what's going on here with Kilauea volcano, which is a little odd. Just haven't really seen anything like that for a while, but I guess that's good, right? Instead of getting a plug down there, blockage, and having the whole thing blow. But that's better seeing it like that. Real quick check on the close approach asteroids here from the NASA site. That's close. Yeah, 63,000 miles. That's really close. That's definitely well within the Earth-Sun range, Earth-Moon range. But it's only 10 feet in diameter, car size. So even if that thing were to hit the Earth, just probably create a little fireball. But it is newly discovered there. Along with this one, it looks like a 22-foot bus-size asteroid, about 73,000 miles. Here's so we have a pair of asteroids coming in close, but nothing of any major value or in terms of major interest. Shouldn't refer to, a close approach asteroid as valuable. Depends on how you look at it, I suppose. Seismograph stations there. There's the S waves coming in from that 6.6 in the mid-Atlantic ridge. That's a Chile station right there. So we'll kind of watch things here today, folks, and see what happens. Got like I say, a lot of activity stirring up out here right now. And when that happens, it's good to be on guard. Over the last, let's see what we've had here over the last 30 days. See, that area of Myanmar has been quiet. It's a seismic gap zone there, meaning that there hasn't been any earthquake activity out there above 4.5 in the last 30 days. Activity to the south, activity to the north. Had a lot of movement here across the Java Trench, Sumatra area northward, but skipping out on this area, which filled in quite nicely there. Here's a little seismic gap zone as well. I look for these seismic gap zones because that kind of gives you hints and clues, maybe some areas to watch in terms of future earthquake activity. But then again, that also depends on when the last larger scale activity took place in that region. There's New Zealand's activity. All right, folks, I'm going to get off here. I got quite a busy day here going on with the schedule, but I will be off here on the side, kind of monitoring things, seeing how things play out. Again, California pretty quiet for now, but it's not always going to be that way. Right now, most of the activity pretty much opposite the North American plate, but we'll see where this new earthquake here wants to send the pressure. I'm thinking it's probably going to be somewhere back over here once again. I mean, it was only hours later following yesterday's 6-pointer that we had the big earthquake there. Now we got another larger 6.6 here in the last half hour. I guess we'll have to see what happens here. All right, folks, have a good day. We will catch you guys back out here a little bit later on unless something major happens. Enjoy your Friday. And we'll see you guys back out here for the Friday night update.